In the last video, I illustrated a simple way of changing an image to a pencil sketch. As you can imagine, even if you are a beginner like I am, there are a gajillion ways of doing things in Affinity Photo 2. In this video, we're going to try to give a pencil sketch a bit of a charcoal look, while using a few more doodads I haven't yet tried. This is an image of my niece, and I'm going to try to make a charcoal look from this image. The first thing we need to do is to duplicate the background layer. So now we have a duplicate layer. Now with the duplicated layer selected, it usually does this automatically, but it's probably a good idea if you always check and make sure that it's selected. We're going to go up to Layer and then Invert. Now what we're going to do is to, on this drop down, go down and select Color Dodge. And when we select Color Dodge, you'll see an almost completely white layer from here. So this looks a lot like what we did in the last video when we did our simple sketch. Now what we need to go to Live Filters. If you remember, that's what this tiny hourglass is. So you're going to hit Live Filters and then go up to Gaussian Blur and select Gaussian Blur. Now once we have Gaussian Blur, what we're going to do is we're going to try to get rid of the white and bring out our image. So you're going to be adjusting the Gaussian Blur until you get the kind of outline that you want. Now, one thing that you want to do when you're doing a sketch type thing is you want to make sure that these edges are visible. So you want to have edges here. Now, what I'm going to set it at is 13 pixels. And again, it's just kind of your, okay, there we go. 13 pixels, 13 point something. Now remember that this is personal preference, so it really doesn't matter what I do, just as long as you know where to go to get what you're aiming for. So now we can close this. And the next thing we need to do is to remove the color. Now before, the way we did this is we went up and chose the HSL adjustment. So we went to Adjustments and we had gone to HSL. Well, we're not going to use the HSL adjustments on this video. We're going to use black and white adjustment. We've done that before in about 10 videos ago, so it is something that we've done. So we're going to go down here to black and white, and we're going to have a black and white adjustment. Now, the plus to using this is that you can adjust your channels. You can adjust your reds, your whites, your greens, your cyans, blues, and magentas until you get something that you want. So here you can make pretty good adjustments. So I'm going to turn my reds way down. I really don't remember what I did the first time, so this is going to be new for me. And let me see. Okay. And I think I want my blues way down, and keep fiddling with these little sliders until you get the outline that you want. What this really does is it sharpens the image up a little bit. So once you get the adjustment that you want, then all you have to do is to close it. On some of these pop-ups you have to press an apply button, and some of them you don't. So if I were you, I would check and make sure that there's an apply button there. And if there is, you have to hit the apply button. Otherwise, you'll be closing it and you won't have anything. You'll find out you're back to where you were before. In this case, we didn't have an apply button, so all I had to do is to close the box. Now, the next thing that we have to do is, with our adjustment layer selected right here, our black and white adjustment, is you want to right-click and then go up to Merge Visible. So select Merge Visible, and up here you're going to get everything merged into one layer. That actually cleans things up a little bit. And since we want to clean things up a little bit, we can get rid of our black and white layer right here. And to prove I'm not lying, if you deselect this, nothing's going to happen. So you know we don't need it anymore. So we're going to click on that and delete that. We want to get rid of this background layer to prove this doesn't matter. Just deselect it. If your image changes, you know it still matters. It doesn't because it's been merged. And then we can right-click on that and delete it. Okay, so make sure that our pixel layer is selected because that's what we're working on right now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this black and white layer. Sometimes I forget to do that, but we might as well so we don't get confused. And to tell you the truth, the name pixel layer is really pretty boring. If you have a ton of layers, it's probably a good idea for you to rename them. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of our black and white layer. So we're going to go duplicate. So now what we have is we have our original background layer that we started out with, and we also have two black and white layers. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add what we call noise. Noise is what you add when you want to make something a little bit more grainy. So, or maybe make it look a little bit more like you have texture to it. So in order to do that, we're going to go to Filters up here, and you'll see that it says Noise. And you go over to Noise, and this is Add Noise, and it will open this up where you can adjust this to either less noise or more noise or whatever you want to have. And I'm going to set my noise to 100%. Notice that up here, this changes. So you know that something's happening here. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I think that that I see something visually changing on here. It really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And I think we're getting to the point where we're making little bitty adjustments to things. But I'm going to show you how you can tell that you've actually done something in a minute. So I'm going to turn that up to 100%. This one does have an apply button, so remember to press that so we can apply our noise. Now, if we're going to see if we have anything really going on here, notice we have this black and white layer that we added the noise to. We have this black and white layer that we didn't add the noise to. So if we deselect this layer, you'll see that there is a little bit of a difference in the pictures. In that way, you can decide that what you got is really what you want. And if it's not, then you can just get rid of it. Okay. Now what we need to do is to blur the noise. That will give it a more pencil sketchy type of thing. So we're going to need to add what's called a motion blur. And to do that, we're going to need to go to Live Filters, and we're going to have to find Motion Blur and click on Motion Blur, and here you have the Motion Blur. What this will do is this will let you control how much of a pencil effect you get, and also it will let you change the pencil effect sketchy, pencil-y things to where it's going at any angle you want. So most of the time when we draw pencil sketches, they're not all at the same angle. They're at different angles, and that's what this kind of does. So I am going to give this a radius of about 5, more or less. Okay, so we'll go up to 5, and then my rotation which will show you the angle of the pencil sketches, I'm going to change that to 45 degrees. And then once I do that, all I have to do is to close the box. Then you can see if anything is different by just unchecking this and checking this. And as you can see, you notice it's not a really sharp difference. If you want to really notice it, what you might want to do, and I didn't do that here, I usually do it, is to zoom in on the image itself, and you can see more or less what you're doing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sharpen this up a little bit if we can. So we'll go up here to Filters, and then go to Sharpen, Sharpen, and Clarity. Okay, so this is going to open this box. I'll set the clarity filter to about 100%. So I'll move this around and see if we can make it clear or not. We don't want it to get so clear that it's going to look like it's like stamped on, if you know what I mean. It really needs to look like, at the end, a charcoal pencil sketch. And then, since I want it to be 100%, we're going to apply. Again, if you don't like the 100%, if you want it to be a bit lower or you don't want it at all, then that's fine, and that's what you're going to do. And again, you can go back and forth and see how much of a difference all this is making. And if you like the other one, well, then you can take that one. Okay, now what we're going to do is we need to give this a charcoal look. In order to do this, what we're going to need is a fill layer. So we'll go up here and select New Fill Layer. And that new fill layer will cover up everything. Notice that the fill layer is at the top and the black and white layer is at the bottom. Okay, so now that we have our fill layer, what we're going to do is we're going to select the paintbrush tool. And just by magic, this has already been selected. I was probably clicking on it. So here's the paintbrush tool, and we need to find our brushes. So we can go in here and find our brushes. For this, I'm going to use two of these. The first one I'm going to use is this large one called the Round Soft Brush Tool, and you can scroll through this and see how many brushes you have, but I'm going to start this and I'm going to paint over this in the middle. Once we start painting over this, and I guess I should make it a little bit bigger, right? Or I'm not going to see anything. Here we go. Paint over this. You'll see that your sketch underneath is going to show through. Now, I don't want to go all the way to the edge, because what I want to do is, after using this brush, then I want to find one with soft edges, a large one with soft edges, or a lighter one, and so we'll go here, and then we'll do the round light brush. So here we have the round light brush, and I'm going to kind of dab this on around the edges. That will make it kind of look like you've got a charcoal-y type of a thing, like that. And again, you can experiment with this until you get what you need to get. And once you do, I think I'll get a little more of her hat right there. So once I get what I want, then this drawing is finished. But it's not exactly, we're not exactly done yet, because what I want, is to put this on a canvas or textured paper of some type. So I'm going to go up to File, and then I'm going to go to Place. Now remember, you can't go to File Open, because if you do File Open, all it's going to do is create another tab, and it won't be on top of the picture. On top of the picture is where we want our image. So we have to go to File, Place, and then I'm going to select this thing called Paper Texture. And I'll open it and then paint it down. Not paint it down that far. I've got kind of a wild mouse. I love it, but sometimes make sure it's on there. And now once it's on there, we'll need to go back to our layers. And there's our paper texture layer. We need to change the opacity. If my opacity slider will even open. There we go. Change the opacity to where you can get as much of the drawing showing through like you want. So now we've got a drawing that is on a piece of textured paper. So we're going to leave it like that. And that's the way I'm going to leave it. Now we're not done with this yet, because what I want to show you with the layer selected, we want to come here where this says normal. Notice there's a little drop down. And when we pick the drop down, we can scroll down to see if we get any changes on this. Here's one that says darken. It didn't do too much, did it? Then we can go to multiply, which makes it a little bit darker, which I really like because I didn't come into this with the image as dark as I would have liked. So we can go multiply. There's color burn, linear burn. I sort of like linear burn too, so I'll have to decide which one I want. Darker color. There's lighten, screen. Some of these, when you get too far down, just looks sort of strange. So we're going to stay up here in this little box up here. I'm either going to select multiply or linear burn. I really like the linear burn one. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'll just do multiply. The linear burn is a little too harsh, so I'll select multiply. So after selecting multiply, now my image is a little bit darker, which I want, because once I put this paper over it, it sort of got... Well, let's see what happens if I change the opacity of the paper. Yeah, I kind of like that. I'll change the opacity of the paper, make it a little bit darker. So it looks like it's being drawn on one of those sketch pads that you can buy at the store. And if you make it too light, then a lot of these lines in the paper, you don't want those to go away. So I'll do that. Now I will go back down to that layer and see what it would look like. Well, it's not going to open for me. Come on. See what it would look like if I went back down to the other one that I like, linear burn. So there's linear burn. Here's multiply. I think when the paper's darker, I like the linear burn. So I'm going to go with linear burn. Again, that's, up to your personal preference. But this was kind of fun to work on. I got to experiment with a few things that I hadn't used before and see what I could do with this image. Try this on some of your own photos and have some fun. Don't be afraid of making mistakes because you can always undo it. Also, make sure I have fun by making sure that you like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you're notified when my next video drops.